You want to keep the result? Like, I mean, hit the floor.
No, it rolled off the table. You can't keep the result. 3.
3. Chris, today the design challenge we will be taking upon ourselves is to design a door that both begs to be opened and terrifies the players.
Ooh, okay. Hello, and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rowe.
Andy, I am very scared of doors right now. Yeah, no spoilers, but we just finished up the latest Stranger Things, and I feel like Stranger Things does a particularly good job of making every door seem like it's there's going to be a monster behind it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so I would recommend it to you. I think you've watched an episode or two. It was really good. We really enjoyed the latest season quite a bit. So.
Oh, that's great. So they've released the first half as of the time of this recording of the season. Does it resolve its storyline, or does it end on a cliffhanger?
Yeah. Again, I will not spoil stuff. There is more story to tell after this one, and I will say that I was satisfied with sort of like where it's at right now.
Okay.
But I'm also pretty anxious for the second half to drop. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I was surprised. They've been tying stuff up that I thought they would never tie up. Right. And I think this is just me as a person who watched Lost back in the day, like who just is like always anxious about hey, are they actually going to try it or not? But yes. So yeah, it's good. Like the performances are amazing. I mean, Netflix is clearly pouring, a ton of money into it. And there's a lot of D&D references, which is nice for people like me, who then have to, turn to their partner and like explain D&D stuff to them, and they don't care. All right. Yeah.
So watching the first 2 episodes, I never thought that I would ever be in a place of saying this, but I actually thought it crossed my mind that they were maybe overdoing it with the D&D. In the first episode, I've never been in a spot to say that about a piece of pop culture.
Yeah, like this is hewing too closely to my experience of the 80s. Yeah. It's good. I keep the thing that I keep on asking myself with this, and like with a lot of like current contemporary media, is like, is this going to play well to someone watching it in 50 years, right? It's like, is the only thing that's interesting about Stranger Things is it the fact that it's set in the 80s, right? So like you remember all the references. I think that is not true about this. There's certainly a lot of stuff in there that's like, I mean, I don't know, like in 50 years, someone's gonna be like, why are you lingering on that can of Coke? Like no one no one cares, but like, right. Like some set designer spent a lot of time tracking down the exact 1986 can of Coke or whatever.
It's interesting to see the way that shows that have D&D on it. It's interesting to see how they change it sometimes to presumably make it more visually appealing or something. Mm-hmm. Often you get something that really looks more like a board game, even though they're ostensibly playing D&D. But what they have set up looks like a board game. I imagine the people that filmed it, know what they're doing, but they're like, yeah, we can't really show a compelling D&D session, a pure D&D session. Now, in the age of Critical Role and stuff like that, I think the tide may have turned on that. But do you have a favorite D&D or role-playing reference or instance in a show or a movie?
Oh, that's a good question. So my daughter has been watching, well, she watches a lot of cartoons. She's almost 7 years old. And it seems like all of her shows now, there's at least one episode in the run that will be like the D&D episode. Like, I think that's just something that happens in like modern sitcoms and TV shows these days, is they're like, they do an episode like that. Like Community famously has one or two that are pretty good, although also cringy in their own ways. Yeah. So I'm trying to think about some of those. Like there's a My Little Pony like Dungeons and Dragon episode, which is pretty good. I can't remember what they call it, right? They all have like kitschy names of to replace Dungeons and Dragons. But
I think that is a published game now, by the way. I've seen it in my local Barnes and Noble.
It's cool. Like, so my daughter is like a little too young for that, but I'll probably pick that one up. Like, I'm not like, My Little Pony is fine, right? Like, I'm not a brony. Like, much respect to those who are, but like, it's sort of like not my thing, other than watching my daughter get like super into it. So, do you have a favorite depiction of tabletop RPGs in media?
I think my favorite depiction, not so much because it's 100% accurate, but more because I feel like it captures the vibe of D&D, is is in the show Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? I think it's probably coming on like 20 years old now at this point. I guess spoilers for a 20-year-old show. But I mean, that show, in the final episode of that show, the nerds are playing their regular D&D game, and they've invited one of like the bad kids whose plot we followed throughout the show, kind of the not bully exactly, but kind of the jerky bad kids, to join them. And the final sequence in that episode is them all having a blast together. And that just makes me feel so good, because that's, to me, that's what D&D is more than, do they have the figures correctly shown on, you know, are they using, it's funny to look like what edition rulebooks these shows sometimes have, because sometimes they have an incoherent combination of books from different editions. But, anyway, but I thought Freaks and Geeks captured the everyone's welcome at the table, and all you need to do is get over yourself a little bit and just live in this shared imagination for a little bit. And I don't know, it makes me feel good to watch that scene, so I think I'd say that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good pull. Yeah, that whole show is, I think, still really worth watching. Like, there's a couple moments from it that just really stick out to me. But yeah, that sort of final scene, that D&D game, is like a really, really good culmination of the story. Story to that point. So
I watched that show with my now 14-year-old in the last year, and it was a good viewing experience, because it is a little too uncomfortable to watch with your kid, but in a good way. You know, like, I think 14 is a good age to be exposed to some stuff that makes you a little uncomfortable, you know, within reason. So we had a lot of good discussions. And of course the D&D is peppered throughout the show, so it's fun when it crops up. But
that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will keep on referencing D&D in popular media unless we move on to our topic. So,
indeed. We will.
So we rolled a 3 to design a door that both begs to be open and terrifies the player. So this topic, I think we added this because I think one of our favorite episodes, at least one of my favorite episodes, was one we did about, I think it was episode 10, something back in there, where we talked about doors and dungeons, and it ended up being this good exploration of something that seems like such a simple concept, like it's a door, it opens, but like what it does to the players and the pacing in the game. So anyway, that's sort of the inspiration for this question. I'll start with a couple things, and then we can kind of take it from there. I want to say I probably referenced this too on that episode, but it's been long enough. There is a door in the Resident Evil video games. So the very first Resident Evil video game for the PlayStation 1, you know, the PlayStation had load times between stuff, right? So you'd go between these rooms, and they would use the doors as a way to like slow the game down and have it load between stuff, right? So like everything would disappear, and all you'd see is this animation of the door opening. You know, so you get really used to this like transition happening, and then about like halfway through the game, you go to that transition and you open it, and then a zombie comes through at you.
That's great.
And like they've never done anything like this in the game up to this point. And then all of a sudden now you distrust all doors. It's like, is it going to happen again? And I just think about that all the time as like it's such a great reversal of like what you expect to happen. And I think that's one of the reasons why doors really trip parties up, right? It's just like, like what could be there? You know, what's going to happen? Like I have no control over the situation. I can't see into the other room. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my opening statement. I guess what do you have when you think about this question?
2 quick things. One, a response to that one. So I recently, in the last year, played a bit of a recent Resident Evil game. I'm not a huge fan of the series, but I've dipped into it from time to time. And I think this was Resident Evil 7. And you're wandering around, you know, a creepy house and with, you know, backwoods axe murderers chasing around in it. And the most memorable part of that game is related to doors also. And it would cause me to flinch away from the screen on just a regular basis. And that's because every time your character opens a door, it's a first-person game. So you're seeing the action through the eyes of the protagonist. And the protagonist leans into every door opening in a way that you would never do in real life, and you would certainly never do if you were pretty sure there was something scary on the other side of the door. But he leans into it in a way that simultaneously waits until the last minute before you see anything behind the door, and makes you incredibly vulnerable or feel incredibly vulnerable to whatever's over there. So it's a
like you might as well open it and back into the room with your eyes closed.
It's just a wonderful little trick. It's so effective, and it is legitimately makes opening doors a more frightening experience than the actual experience of being chased around by the monsters in the game, which is more humdrum.
Okay.
The other thing, so thinking about doors in other media that kind of beg to be opened but being scary, I think my pick would be from the Lord of the Rings, so a classic. It's the door that they come across while they're going through the paths of the dead. It's a little side scene. I mean, it's maybe 2 paragraphs worth of description. But when I was a kid, I thought about it and I thought about it. I couldn't stop thinking about this door because they're wandering through this creepy tunnel system and they come across a door and there's a body or a skeleton in front of it. And someone has died trying to get into that room. Yeah. And I don't remember the details, but I think the suggestion is there's massive treasure or something like that behind it. But somebody died not trying to get out of a room, but trying to get into one. And that always just creeped me out so much. And in the book, Gimli is tempted for a second to open it, and maybe the other members of the Fellowship pull him back and snap him to his senses. But when I was reading that, as a kid, what could be behind that door? It must be so awesome and mysterious. Yeah. And at the same time, it's very scary because obviously this whole scenario is cursed. So.
Yeah. Oh wow. Ooh, yeah. I've forgotten about that door. Is it in the movies?
I think that it is briefly in the movies, but I don't remember. Yeah. That whole sequence in the movies is rough. Is a little. I'm not fond of what they did with it. So I haven't watched that scene too many times. But.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it sounds like we are in a little bit of a horror mood right now, which is fine by me, and I mean that it is fine by me. So let's stick with that, and then can we pick like a time period or a genre? That's always helpful for focusing these conversations.
The doors I think that are most easy to make scary are any place where it makes sense to have a big ornate door with carvings and stuff like that all over it. And to me that says, sometime in the vague period of time in which in which there were castles and palaces and stuff.
Yeah.
So
what if it is modern times or a little bit far future, but the door that we're making is very medieval and ornate? Sure. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so I think, if you're thinking about ways to, terrify and tantalize players a bit, I think, having something that's, incongruous with the atmosphere and the setting around them is really helpful, right? So, I'm thinking, if you had, in the middle of a football stadium or on a space station or something like that, there's just this, huge door, right? Huge ornate door with maybe, a little bit of stonework around it that's just sort of freestanding in the middle somewhere. And, maybe... I'm kind of thinking I wonder if you could walk around it even. It's one of those doors you open it and if you actually walk through the threshold of it, that takes you somewhere else.
For sure.
But otherwise you can walk all the way around it and it's it just looks like it's just a freestanding door.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Or do you want it to be part of a structure?
I like it. Let's keep chatting. So having it be freestanding like that, I wonder if that maybe is a little too blatant, if that makes sense. It's obviously a magic type of door. So and I feel like players who saw that would understand that is a gateway to some other dimension or location. Which is not a problem.
That's a good point. Okay, so let's set it within a structure. The other idea, I don't know if we want to go this route, but I just want to throw it out because I'm thinking about it, is having a couple of super ornate doors like that in a room, but then one really small, crappy looking door, kind of in the center of them.
Oh, interesting.
Too. Yeah. And it's are you going to go through the big ones? You can go through the small one that's actually in the center of the room.
Yeah.
That doesn't look as ornate.
So you know what? So these are not ideas that we should necessarily use, but you know what? 2 real life door situations that are intriguing but kind of creepy are to me are doors that opened to nowhere or that appear to open to nowhere. So I think the Winchester house with its doors on upper floors that open out into space, open
Yeah.
space, you know?
Yeah.
And then also kind of, I guess it's sort of a horror movie trick, but it gets me every time. It's always really creepy when people open a door and there is unexpectedly like a solid wall behind it.
Yeah.
You know, just something creepy about that to me.
Ooh, I like that. I'm like, are we? It sounds like okay. I think we should lean towards maybe like a multi-stage door. Yeah. So, not to make it this a whole thing, but yeah.
We don't want to talk too much about what's behind the door because we want to talk about the door itself, like what would make it irresistible to open. So what are the qualities of a door that would make you go, I've got to open this door, I've got to see what's behind it? And then what are the qualities that would make you know that it's a bad idea to do that?
I think the thing that makes you like want to is like if you're trying to proceed through something, you know, through a dungeon or like a mansion or something, it's like that's the only way left, right? Like you have to open this thing. I think the sort of door we're talking about is probably not like a side door, right? Like it's not like right, those can be creepy too, but I think like thematically it'd be more interesting. Like this is a door like the party has to open.
Yeah.
But you know, there's qualities about it that make them want to try like every other possibility before they have to go through it.
You know, I do really like the idea that you mentioned earlier of the door being incongruous. I'm imagining, you know, living on a Deep Space Nine type space station, and there's just a door in an old-fashioned door.
Yeah.
With no explanation, nobody, you haven't found anyone who can tell you where it leads. It's not on the schematic or something, and you pass it by. But you know, it's just a technology-wise, it's way incongruous with the space station.
Yeah.
To me, that would be almost impossible to avoid. I mean, that would bother me until I found a way to find out what was behind that door.
Yeah, like it's like a a wooden door at a space station.
Countless novels in the Gothic tradition have used just a door that is never opened is itself intriguing, right? A door that no one talks about, or that it's always locked or something. That's inherently somewhat intriguing. I don't know about you, but to me that I don't know how you would convey that in a game, but there's something compelling about that.
Yeah, a quick sidebar. So Andy, when you are in a place that like is not your house and you see a door that's sort of like, I wonder what that does, do you try to open it just to see if it's locked or not?
I not if the door made logical sense and seemed to be a regular normal part of the thing. If it were a weird door, then I would probably wait till I was alone and then try the knob.
Okay, yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm a rule follower, so I would have to be very alone to before I try that. I'm like probably have to think about it for a little bit. But okay, so thanks for that. You listener can think about like what you would do in that scenario too. But, so the thing that I'm thinking about is, and maybe this is too much, is like, what if the door looks different to every party member? Like, you know, like, so I don't know how exactly you play that at the table. Like maybe you describe it and then hand everybody a secret note or something. It's like, oh, but it actually looks like this, you know, this to you, something like that. Right. So if you can get them to the point where they can compare notes, in some way, like, then it would be like, well, wait, you know, like, why are you seeing this?
Man, it would be so fun if you could do this somehow without drawing attention to the fact that everyone was seeing a different door, you know? Because what if, you know, somebody saw a Star Trek style high-tech door and somebody else saw an iron dungeon door, and they're both, someone is saying, all right, I'm going to try to hack the keypad, and someone else is going, what are you, you know, what?
Oh, that'd be really great. Yeah. I mean, that would stop the party in their tracks. Okay, so that'd be a little hard to pull off. Maybe like let's table that as like a cool idea if you have the right group to pull that off. I mean, I think you could. Yeah, you could like hand out something at the beginning. It's like, you know, we're going to come to a door. I'm going to describe it as this, you know, but it actually looks like this, something like that. You can give them
interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a good DMing challenge, maybe outside the scope of this design exercise, but that's fun. So here's something else I'll throw out. What if there is a timer or a clock or something, or an indicator on the door of when it will open?
Ooh, I like that too. Yeah. So if we're on a space station, I mean, it is like, a pretty simple looking door. You know, space station or some sort of, far future thing, you know, pretty normal looking wooden door. And then you're thinking like there's some display like above it that's counting down.
Yeah, or I don't know, maybe there's some sort of some ticking gears, some clockwork or something next to the handle.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'm trying to think like how you could flavor that for the countdown to be like compelling itself too.
Yeah.
There's a really good, I don't know, like a really good show that my wife and I watch called Infinity Train, which I'd highly recommend if you like animation and kind of weird stories. It's really good. But that show deals a lot with doors and countdowns and things like that. So there's everybody has a countdown on their hand in their arms and stuff like that goes up and down based on what they do when they're on this train, which is essentially infinitely long. And has all sorts of stuff inside of it.
How have I not heard of this show?
I don't know. It's really good, and like maybe we should talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, it's super good if you're into like like I don't even know how to describe it. It's amazing. Go look it up.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of where I'll leave it right now, just because we're running out of time.
Right. Yeah. So
so I like the idea of a countdown that is maybe not like a sequential like timer countdown, but changes based on what the players are doing in some way, or maybe even how they approach the door or something like that. You could play with that.
Yeah, any sort of system that seemed to change based on what the players were doing in the vicinity of the door, I think would invite certain personality types to become obsessed with what's going on.
I mean, like you could almost make it like they have to. I don't know, like how you would do this. Would it count up and down, or change colors or something like that? This might be too complicated to pull up at the table. Like, they like all have to put their hand on the knob or something for it to fully open.
Maybe you can see the door bar or the door lock, moving in the unlock direction.
Yeah, I think then that maybe turns it into a bit of a game. I think might break the immersion.
Yeah.
What if a door has like as many doorknobs as there are players that you have in the game?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's like to open it, you have to coordinate enough to to twist 5 doorknobs at the same time.
What if the doorknob or the doorknobs? What if they're everywhere except where you normally put a doorknob? Like, what if the doorknob's like in the bottom left of the door or something?
Yeah, yeah, they're spread out evenly. Oh, actually, that'd be pretty creepy and pretty cool. Like it's a door, but it has like 100 doorknobs on there, so like part of it is figuring out like which ones to turn.
Yeah, well, just think how weird it would be to walk through a house and see a normal door, and the doorknob is just like right in the middle of the door. Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah, it'd be weird. You'd want to know why.
Right. I mean, we're throwing out some ideas here, but I think we both like the idea of a countdown or a timer of some sort that suggests to the players that some combination of time or action will cause the door to open. And who wouldn't want to find out why such an elaborate mechanism is on this door?
Yeah, so like maybe that unlocks it. Or do you think it would just open when it gets down to 0?
How many horror movies have had a previously shut door, creepily open for somebody, and then they go in and die?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We have a number of different ideas here. So let's switch over to the terrifying part and see if we can pull these things together into a coherent door. So what would scare people legitimately from opening a door? And this is hard because when you're playing a game, stuff that would be scary in real life in the context of the game is like an invitation to engage with it, right?
Yeah.
So, in real life, things that would scare you from opening a door are evidence that something inside is bad and will get out if you open the door, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's like a creature, a person, or an environmental radiation or gas or something.
Yeah, I think that it'd be totally fine for like the door to be rattling, right?
Oh, yeah.
The whole time, right? Like, so yeah, it does feel like there's something on the outside. I think you could also play with senses a little bit. Like if they get close to it, like all sound cuts out, or like there's some sort of noxious smell coming from the other side. Yeah.
A variety of different like smells coming from the door at different times could be interesting. Colored lights of various sorts through the cracks around the door.
Yeah, like what if the lighting changes to that like video game lighting where like everything other than the door becomes illuminated if you get too close to it? right? Like you're walking down the hallway towards it, right? Like all the lights shut off except for like one dim bulb sort of like above it that's swinging back and forth, and the door starts shaking and everything starts smelling like blood and like,
Yeah. Something that could either be an enticement to open the door or a warning to keep it closed is if there's someone on the other side that you can see or hear. Maybe they're asking to be let out. Maybe they're begging people not to open the door and leave them in here. Or, I don't know.
Oh, I like that, begging you not to open it, right? Like, yeah, leave me in here. That would be like, well, I mean, should we? Right? Like, yeah, but if you set it up such that it's like you have to, like, this is the door that you have to go through, or I mean, just like, a party. If you have someone on the other side of the door, like, weakly saying, like, don't let me out, like, don't, please don't, and like everything's shaking, like they're trying to get out too at the same time. Like, they're not gonna walk away from that. Like,
so, slight switch. So what do PCs normally do when they're faced with like a concerning door? Like,
they listen.
Yeah, so they listen at it, they check it for traps. I'm wondering, can we do something with those very routine activities to unsettle the PCs? What if there's just something unexpected that you get when you roll your detect traps or something, Yeah. Like, there's I don't know, there's an elaborate thing that appears to be a trap, but it doesn't seem to be connected to anything or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. The thing that just occurred to me, right? So the things that I've seen parties do, right? They'll listen to it, listen at the other side of the door, try the lock very gently, look for the hinges and stuff. But they'll also try to like look around the edges and stuff. And I think that might be a good opportunity for something very creepy to happen there.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm thinking like, even if you wanted to ground it in reality, like if there's just a mirror on the other side of the door and they try to look around the crack and they see another eye staring back at them. Oh my goodness, like, yeah, something like that would be pretty good. Or, I mean, it could just be like there's something in there that's mirroring their movements, like trying to figure out.
Okay, well, we've been talking for a while, so like I wonder if we can pull from these ideas and kind of produce our door. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to try to like pull a bunch of these ideas together and let's try to like come up with our description of the door. So we're on like a space station of some sort. There's a hallway that has this one door that like everybody acknowledges is creepy and doesn't quite fit, but it's there, right?
Okay.
And so the party either they're the first ones to actually see this, or they're the only ones that can see it. There's some sort of like ticking timer on the top of it that seems to have just started or is just close enough to like getting to zero that it's starting to concern people. As soon as they approach the door, like when the timer hits zero, right? And we'll leave it a little bit up to the GM to figure out like exactly how that's going to count down. Like maybe there's something you can hook into with your story like that. When it hits zero, like all the lights go off in that hallway other than one light sort of above it. And then as they approach this door, right, they can see that it's rattling. There's someone inside saying like, "Don't let me out," those sorts of things. Any investigation just kind of makes it like creepier and creepier of the door. But then to open it, they all need to coordinate like turning knobs that are just like set somewhat randomly around the face of this door. Once they open it, then I guess that's a little bit up to the GM what's on the other side, what's actually on the other side. But I think that would be a pretty good setup for like, you can't ignore this thing. Yeah. Right? Is there any other details from what we talked about that you want to make sure that we get in there?
I like the idea that the door's not on any schematic or map. So what I kind of like is the idea that this door is there as sort of a long-running point of curiosity while the PCs are doing other stuff. So instead of you having, like, the plot is, like, find the thing that's behind the door, it'd be more like you're going through your adventures and, like, and, by the way, no one, on this ship knows what's behind that door, and it's not on the map for the ship, the map of that deck, Yeah. Because I like the idea of this enticing the PCs over time to be like, you know what, like, let's pause on the regular adventure and let's see if we can figure out what the heck is up with that door on deck 3 or something.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, maybe the decision to start investigating it like kicks off some stuff like there. And like, so I mean, if you pass it normally, it's just sort of like, well, there's just that door that no one can open. It's like at a certain point you would make peace with that, I guess, if you're on the ship. Like if you were just a normal NPC, you'd be like, oh yeah, there's that door. Like I don't know, someone's tried it, doesn't open, I've got other stuff to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you could play with that. You could amp that up to a suspicious level. Like, why have none of the 300 people on the ship ever tried to get in the door? Or it could just simply be, there's like 4,000 doors on this ship. I don't need to go in that one, so it's not my job.
Yeah. Yeah. If you really just wanted to make it extra creepy, it's like, you ask people like, well, what's going on with this door? And everybody's like, what door? Right? Like, just, they can't see it. They deny it.
Or maybe it's like it's not even on like the surveillance cam.
There's just, all sorts of ways that like there's kind of this plausible deniability of it, or just outright like, you're the only ones who can see it.
Yeah. So I otherwise I like your description of the door. And, I think it would probably work best placed in a part of the ship where there really normally would not be anything in the space behind it except for whatever ship machinery. And yet your interaction with the door suggests some sort of activity behind it that, All right. So I think that's good. Shall we call that a door?
Yeah, I think we should call that a door, and I'm not opening it.
Yeah, I'm not either. That's what the red shirts are for. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Get me a squad and send them to deck 3 and get that door open.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Chris, for brainstorming on the door. This was fun. And listeners, if you use this door, or if you use any kind of door that meets this description of being both intriguing and scary, I would personally love to hear about it. So
yeah, please reach out. Yeah, there's a contact page on our website where you can get our emails. Email addresses. We do love hearing from people. So please send us any door related material that you want to. Although I don't know, I guess I shouldn't make that as broad as I just did, but there we go.
I don't know. I would like to hear what door related information people have to send us.
There's probably something we missed that's pretty obvious. It's like they go to the creepy door section in Home Depot and you're all set. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. This has been Roll for Topic. We are part of Roll for It Media podcasts. The Roll for It Media network, I think, is what we're settling on finally. You can listen to our sister show, The Splat Book, at thesplatbook.com. They're super great. I was actually on the episode last week. We played a quick game of Swords Without Master. Swords plural, master singular. It's a super fun game. I actually listened back to it. I don't normally listen to podcasts I've been on, but this one was fun to listen to. It's like, oh yeah, that went in a really wacky direction. I really like it. You should all try that game out sometime if you get a chance. Go listen to them. I think that's about it. Do you have anything else, Andy?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I've been Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rao.
And remember, if your player is having fun, you're a great GM.